Thank you, and I do realize that in addition to the honor of speaking here, I have the responsibility to be quick because we are wrapping up. So thank you for the opportunity. So quickly, Groupon, we are headquartered here in Chicago. We're coming up on our 5-year anniversary here in a few weeks, and we're at about 11,000 people now globally. And about 3,000 of those are with us here in the States, and the majority of those are here in Chicago. So we've been hiring, and it's been quite an honor and a pretty amazing ride for us. And one of the things that I'm doing with us now, I started with us when we were a scrappy 30-person startup here in Chicago, and I've been able to help out as we've hired and been a part of a lot of interviews, and now even work internally with some of our interview training for managers. And one of the soapboxes that I get on is, are we thoughtful about retention when we're having that interview? Are we thinking beyond just, does this make sense? Immediately, does this fill that proverbial seat, or the literal seat? But does this make sense down the road? And I think a lot of that goes into mindset and approach with the hiring team. And by hiring team, I mean anybody who's going to be involved with the candidate, from crafting a job description, through phone screening, through in-person interviews, hiring managers, et cetera. And I think that process, the more that we dedicate energy in being intentional about what does that mean, and how do we set ourselves up for that, how do we set ourselves up to be successful, to make that a very, to use the cliche, two-way street for that candidate and for the employee. So it is more of a true decision between two professionals about, does this make sense over time? So quickly, I want to make some crazy assumptions. I would say that an engaged employee means everybody wins. And I would say that a well-matched job can get us that engaged employee. And I would say that an effective interview can get us the well-matched job. Quick side note, if you do an image search for everybody wins, that comes up. Thought it was great. I think it has something to do with Montana. So apparently, in Montana, everybody wins. And by following the chain here, an effective interview can also, in effect, get us to everybody winning. And it's trying to be contributory to that whole process. The yields of an effective interview. By the way, these 4 bullet points, I'm already presupposing that we're covering the essentials. And by the essentials, I'm talking about things like skills match, motivation to do the work. Have they done the work or similar work in the case of a younger employee? And do they align with our value set? I'm assuming that we're already covering those. But to me, to a lot of us at Groupon, an effective interview will yield these things as well. They'll yield trust between both sides. Do I trust that I've met the candidate? Do I trust that I've met the person? I'd much rather hire the person than the candidate, or the person than the applicant. Do I know what makes them tick? Do I know what they care about? And does the candidate trust that we are who we say we are? And that we're not just putting on, as the last slide a couple of presentations ago showed, the Learjet showing up to the interview. Is that employee experience similar to the candidate experience? Clarity. Do we have clarity? Do we understand what the job will be, really what it will be like? What makes it awesome? What makes it suck? Every job has all those elements. Why not get those out in the interview as honest as we can? And for us, do we have clarity on that candidate? What really makes them tick? What do they really mean by all the things on their resume? What's behind the resume? What are they all about? Respect. Do we respect them? But more importantly, as an employer, do they respect us? Regardless if they leave wanting to work here or not, do they respect us? Which is paramount in the age of Glassdoor and then social sites on their own right, and just how interconnected we are. Because employer reputation is so big. I would say, first and foremost, it's a human thing, a human decency thing to show that respect. But there's certainly a business value case to this in terms of, are we presenting a candidate experience that makes them respect us? And then confidence. Does each side, after the interview, have confidence that they've vetted things out in their completeness? Have I taken the time as the employer? Have we taken the time as a hiring team to be able to walk out of that room and have a debrief and understand that we've really vetted this out and vetted for match? And as the candidate being able to walk out the door going, okay, I get who they are. I know who I had my thoughts about walking in. Now I know who they really are behind the walls. Do we leave with confidence? So if these can be our yields, I think that sets us up for the success to having a longer-term retention. So inputs to those. What are we talking about? How do we get there? I think the mentality is a big thing. How are we thinking about it? And this goes across the entire hiring team. I'll touch on more in a second what I mean behind mentality. Employer brand. Employer brand can be massive, and it's more than just a chance to evangelize our opportunities, to talk about what jobs are open. To me, employer branding is a phenomenal opportunity to give candidates a roadmap for how we behave and to convey what it's like to work there. Give the how, give the style, give the culture, if you will, in addition to the what. And we can do that with employer, but there's a lot of rich opportunities, regardless of how active we are with social media or different channels. We can use them all differently. Environment is huge. And this may seem too tactical for some, but if we want to set this up to be truly a two-way street, what's the environment the candidate's walking into? How thoughtful are we being about that? From when they walk into whatever reception areas we have to the actual, and this I think is the most important, what's the interview room scenario like? What are they seeing when they walk in? Is it an ominous, I'm sitting across from the power position in the seat, across from a desk? Is it more collaborative? How can we make that conducive to getting us where we want? How does environment play in the psychological balance of that whole interview? Technique, interview technique, everything from how we prep to the questions we ask to the debrief. How well do we go about this? Now, I realized this as I was putting this deck together. I was articulating some of these things in a different way or in new ways, and so as I was putting this deck together than I have before and putting some things more down on paper, because we've certainly tried many different things as we've grown over the past 5 years. And I did unintentionally came up with the acronym there, MEET, M-E-E-T. And I told a coworker, I'm laughing at my computer as I'm typing this out, and I tell my coworker what's going on, and she says, I wouldn't call that out if I were you. It's too hokey. And so I'm calling it out that I don't mean it to be the acronym that it is. But if anybody else saw it, let's enjoy the laugh together. So the M in MEET, align on mentality. Does interviewing imply the candidate wants the job? Do all of us as a hiring team, what do we believe? Now, I have my thoughts on this. This is a big soapbox moment for me internally. I think this does not mean the candidate wants the job. Now, some people have tremendous success with that mentality that if someone's there, they want the job, and I want to see them earn it and prove it to me that they were great. I would challenge that they don't want a great candidate should not want the job the second they walk in the door. They just walked in the door. No matter how much they've read about us on Glassdoor, on LinkedIn, or the friends they might have working here, they just met us. They have no idea what I'm like as a teammate or what I'm like as a potential manager. They have no idea what it's really like. And if they're a great candidate, they should have a lot of other opportunities, regardless of where they are in their career. Great candidates will have opportunities. We saw a lot of presentations on that today about how tough the job market is in a variety of sectors. And we hire a ton in the software engineering space and the sales space. And it's obviously rife with talent shortages, great talent shortages. So what do we think as a hiring team? And so to me, I'll say that question, why do you want this job? Why should we hire you? I think is so dangerous because it implies they do want the job. And if they're great, they shouldn't. Now, I think a pivot is very safe. The pivot of what has you interested? Why are you here? Why are you still talking with us after the phone screen and thanking them for their time? Awesome, great. I'll ask it all day long. I want to know that. But if I ask them, why do you want this job? I'm implying they want it. And I'm immediately tipping that balance, the psychological balance of the room, into I'm in the power seat. And I shouldn't be in the power seat. There should be no power seat. Yeah, at the end of the day, the company has to make that decision, or they will likely make that decision unless it's a woo situation where we're wooing someone. But why isn't it both? Why does it have to be either way? I think we set ourselves up for, again, a better retention if the whole interview process is truly professionals making a decision. Whether that professional is 8 minutes out of undergrad or a COO candidate with 35 years of experience. Why can't it be the same experience? Are we adding to the company or are we adding to my team? Again, what's the mentality? Some people have phenomenal experience interviewing and hiring for their teams, but their mentality is my team. But I think there's a benefit in, are we hiring for the company? And are we thoughtful to that? Again, back to retention, what's that mindset like? And are we thinking about that as we're meeting the candidate? The candidate might be a great fit for our team. They might be an excellent fit for the role for which we're looking at them or the role to which they applied. They might be an even better fit for something else. And especially if they're on the younger end of the spectrum. And we've hired a ton of Gen Y. As millennials have gotten a lot of play here today on the positive and the negative end. We have several, and we are successful because of that mix that we've had. And are we thoughtful, especially for career path and where else they might be a fit? Also, a big one, I think, is it a task or a privilege to interview someone? What do our hiring teams think about that? If there are 4 of us, 5 of us, however many people going in to meet with someone, does everybody want to do it, or is it a have to? Is it a labor? Are people saying, I have to go do this interview? Or do the people realize it, or do they feel that it's an honor? Not only to evangelize the brand and talk about it and help there to be an opportunity and see if there's a match, or the benefit of building up the company. Where's the mentality on the people? And if people don't want to do interviews, get them off the loop. It's not worth it. There's low value because we're not really having a meaningful conversation on that. Employer brand, as I mentioned, I think it's a roadmap. Everything from our job descriptions to the career site to our social presence. Job descriptions. Are we foretelling in the description why someone would want the job and not just what we need out of it? Why is this job great? What makes it great? How does it fit into the spectrum of the company? Especially, I think, as the war for talent increases, are we being very explicit about how this role fits into the rest of the company? Why are we great? By the way, we're not just all awesome either. What makes it tough? I want to be very upfront about that. We want to be very honest about, again, what are the real challenges here? Every single person is not meant for every single company. Why? What makes it different? But be prescriptive about that. And this is a great chance, too, to give a sense of how we operate, how we think, how we talk even. Groupon, we leverage humor a lot. Humor is a vehicle for us, and we use it strategically. As we feature a business, we'll use it, and especially in job descriptions, our employer brand, we try to mirror a similar tone. We follow a similar style guide with regards to company voice. And I want to include some of that in a job description to set that up. On the career site, are we showing images? Do we have videos? Do we have testimonials from employees? Can they get a bit more color and sense of what it's like to be there? The social presence, phenomenal opportunity to humanize the brand. And again, certain companies have different inclinations towards, do we use Twitter, do we use Facebook, do we use LinkedIn, and do we go beyond that into the Instagrams and Pinterests of the world? Whatever our decisions are, there's so much opportunity to use those in ways that can be very, very descriptive to how we operate. And in tying that thematically across all of the social channels is so key too. And we've gotten better at this, I think, as we've grown. Is there a consistency from LinkedIn to Twitter to Facebook, the big 3 that we'll use a lot, into how we brand ourselves? Now, granted, the conversation might be a bit more casual on Twitter or Facebook than it is sometimes on LinkedIn, but where is it consistent? And where do we have opportunities to really convey what the culture is? And to me, culture is not just the fun stuff, and culture is not just the parties that we do. Culture is everything. Culture is inclusive of the work. I would say culture is the how, if everything else is the what. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity in our branding across all the channels of employer brand to give that roadmap to the candidate. I want to spend a quick minute on environmental impact. I know this is not definitely the focus of this conference, but thinking about how many people we interview as globally across all of our companies, all of us in this room and every company globally, if we were to offer every candidate a bottle of water, what that's doing to the environment. So at Groupon, we've gone to Culligan bottleless water coolers. It's a phenomenal opportunity to both save your thirst and the environment. I'm kidding. So what I'm talking about is environment. By the way, totally true. Please stop giving up out of walls. But what I really mean by environment is the environment. The environment we're walking into and what the candidate's walking into for the interview. Real big difference, I think, between option 1 and option 2. And again, we don't all have the luxury. I understand that. By the way, these are random pictures I found online. These are not our offices. But the idea here, option 1, unless we have to, I'd never want to use this option where interviewer is sitting at the power position. Interviewee comes in, sits down at the desk, across the desk from the interviewer. Again, I think it immediately sends a signal for what we value in this interview dynamic. It's not about a two-way street. It is not about collaboration. It is not about identifying, does this make sense for both of these two professionals over time? It's about one side impressing the other. And this is especially true for younger talent. I think as we have more experience, it's not as big of a deal, and certainly we have this environment in certain areas. But I don't think it's as conducive, especially when we're looking at the millennial generation. I think especially it's important. If we have to do this, and I've done this myself, I've moved that chair on the back side of the desk around to the side. Simple things like this, and again, some may think this is ridiculous and too tactical. I think it's really powerful, especially if we have someone who's maybe not as comfortable in the interviewee seat and they're a little nervous. Why reinforce that? I want to get to know them. I want to hire the person. I don't want to hire the applicant. So you have here's option 2, right? Whatever this is. This looks phenomenal. Apparently we're going to give them coffee and water. And we're all going to sit down and draw a picture of ourselves. Whatever it is. Point is, more collaborative, round table, or at least it's not a desk where I'm sitting across from somebody. Powerful. Ideally, we have option 3. Ideally, all interviews take place inside a commercial airliner. And I don't mean, do you have offices and rooms that look like a cockpit? I do not mean, oh, is this a flight simulator? No. Go to O'Hare. Go to Midway. Go to your local airport. Get inside a plane. Steal it. Fly it. If the interviewer and the interviewee can fly and land a plane together, it's a great sign of a long-term fit. Solid fit. Also a great sign to see if any of our employees could be pilots. Now again, this is not really cost effective, so it's used lightly, and I don't mean it. If anyone's taking notes, don't sue me. At the back end of all this, mentality, employer brand, environment, and technique. Technique of interviewing. First of all, plan. What are we going in for? Does the hiring team agree on the job description? Have we looked at it? Does everybody on the hiring loop understand what we're going in for? What are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves? What do we really mean by all this? By the way, if there are 4 of us or 5 of us walking in to meet someone, what am I covering versus what Sam is covering versus what Dustin is covering versus what Courtney is covering? What are our focus areas? That's something I've picked up since joining Groupon. I was very much a let's wing it kind of guy, and I still am to some degree. I enjoy that. I'm comfortable if I get uncomfortable if it's too rigid, but I have certainly appreciated and brought into my own personal rigor a sense of that planning. It's so helpful, and it's a much better candidate experience that we're planned out. As we're asking questions, so one tactical piece here. What are those questions like? I don't believe there are 5 awesome interview questions. I think it's a danger. But I think it's the type of questions we ask. Are there questions that reveal what we value? I'm going to quote someone here named John Vlastelica. I want to give him the credit because this is not my quote, it's his. About questions reveal what we value. And so the way we ask our questions, what we're asking about, how we ask them, they reveal what we value. Very, very true and powerful. Cheers to John. Questions that foster conversation. Can it really be a conversation? I would challenge that it can. There are questions we want to get out. There are tactical things. Again, I think that's why we can use different aspects of the whole interview loop to get at those. But ideally, we're having conversations, and it's a richer conversation throughout it. Are we enabling the candidate to show off? I want questions that enable that. I want to see them at their best. To use the sales parallel, if we're interviewing a sales candidate, it's great if we can role play a potential Groupon sales pitch or working with that and articulating what that value proposition is. But I don't expect everyone's awesome at conveying the Groupon pitch and articulating our value prop at the interview stage. No. If they're a good candidate, they're busy doing their current job or living their life. I hope they've read up a little bit, and I want to see how they potentially could evolve. But I want to see them at their current gig. So let's role play their current opportunity. I'll play a client at your current gig. Let me see that, because chances are we can train you up to get to the same level of acumen once you're here. I want to see what that core is. I want you to be able to show off and to see where that goes. And certainly be intentional about it. Train on it. We've gotten much better as we've grown about being prescriptive. We have multi-hour workshops on interview technique. Everything from looking at the description, aligning on focus areas, the questions we ask, and how we really have a great candidate experience that's rich and beneficial for everybody, and how we debrief. That training piece is so key. So I'm towards the end of time. I'm happy to talk more as we wrap up. But that's again how I think we can set ourselves up for success. The more that we are thorough and intentional about everything that we do, and thinking in the interview, does this make sense long term, or is this just to fill this seat? So, cheers. Thank you.